As the mass uprising against the Myanmar coup gathered pace across the country, Myanmar's generals have reacted and have now issued a warning against further demonstrations. Exactly a week after the leader Aung San Suu Kyi and dozens of other members of her National League for Democracy party were detained, protests demanding their release have been gathering momentum, with thousands of demonstrators coming out on the streets raising this demand. The military has so far refrained from using force to stop the protests, but with pressure slowly building, riot police personnel used water cannons to disperse thousands gathered on a highway in the capital. Martial law has been declared in 7 townships in Myanmar's Mandalay. Myanmar State TV warned that action would be taken against the protesters who break the law. The state broadcaster also warned that opposition to the military takeover was unlawful and signaled a potential crackdown, and that there had been violations of the law by groups using the excuse of democracy and human rights. The military, which ruled Myanmar for nearly half a century, seized power last week. It said that its allegations of fraud in the November general election were not being investigated. And to better understand the situation in Myanmar, we earlier spoke to journalist Dave Gronebaum from Kuala Lumpur. Listen in.
I mean, young people in their late teens and 20s have generally been the people who've led these protests against the military in Myanmar. I mean, you go back to the 1988 student demonstrations that were violently crushed by the military. Those people are some of the most respected in the country still. Now a new generation is making their voices heard, but they're bringing in people from all different generations with them. But one of the signs I saw in the demonstrations stuck out. It said, "You picked the wrong generation." A clear message to this new junta that this young, savvy, tech-savvy generation does not want to live under military rule like their parents and grandparents did. Protest just getting underway there really this morning. I mean, keep in mind that it's about a little after 10 a.m. there right now, so things are just getting going. It's hard to get a gauge as to how many protesters are on the streets at this particular moment, but keep in mind yesterday, those protests picked up people as they went along. Throughout the day, they got bigger and bigger, and they hit a point where the United Nations estimated that it was a total of about 60,000 people on the streets. So expect that to pick up. It's going to be interesting to see if it gets as big today as it was yesterday, because today would ordinarily be sort of the beginning of the work week, what they have of a work week in Myanmar, because like so many places, the economy has been battered by COVID-19. But another interesting thing to really keep an eye on what happens today and throughout the week are, as you mentioned, those work stoppages. Doctors and teachers and some other people in other government ministries refused to work last week. Will those continue to grow? Will people continue to refuse to work? And if you see that spread among government employees, the military may find themselves at some point where they cannot keep the government functioning.